Hey there guys, what is up? So I thought I'd make a couple of videos actually, to dispel a couple of myths and very disingenuous, insincere um, perpetrations by people that call themselves scientists. And it is important to understand why these ideas are flawed fundamentally, and more importantly, where this comes from. And to do this, I'm going to be using a much beloved scientist of my own as well, uh, Michio Kaku. I suppose Dr. Michio Kaku. But as the video goes on, you'll see why that, in and of itself, should be one of the biggest hints that what you are being told is only a portion of the picture. And very often, when it comes time for any sort of disclosure, any sort of, let's say, guided speculation, this is often reserved for when they can profit from it and not when it hurts or hampers their career. So let's jump right into it.
Be interested in physics. I mean, we're only talking about the universe.
So in the first clip, you can see Michio talking about the universe. He's saying, well, how can you not be interested in science and physics? This is what governs the universe. But we do not know that. And you constantly hear of all of these developments in the astronomy community, of how, oh, this thing that we observed, it doesn't obey any of the laws of physics that we previously knew. So you have to ask yourself, firstly, why why do they tell themselves and tell others, because let's be honest, it's not just for themselves, um, that these things are immutable laws of the universe. When if you just have a good enough telescope, you can look out and see examples of these supposedly immutable laws being quite muted.
I'm Dr. Michio Kaku, professor of theoretical physics at the City University of New York.
So now we see that he is introducing himself, firstly, to dispel anybody who may be willing to go down that road of, oh, this guy just hates people that have titles or whatever. Maybe he doesn't have his own title, that's why he hates other people's titles. It's got to do with the amount of enthusiasm and the amount of, let's say, gravity that they want you to feel when you hear this title and what position they occupy, to give anything that they say more gravity, so that if you were to question it, the bar for which you can make that high jump is so incredibly high that they sort of are trying to dissuade you into not arguing with them. Because why would you? You're a nobody, they're a doctor. So put two and two together, you are probably the dumb one who needs the good doctor's advice, and the doctor doesn't need to hear anything from you, just buy his book.
Changing every aspect of our life, the economy, health, transportation, everything could be changed by quantum computers. Take a look, for example, of food supply. We rely upon fertilizers. There was a green revolution that took place that allows us to feed the population of the world. But that green revolution is slowly coming to an end. We need a second green revolution, being able to take nitrogen from the air and combine it to make ammonia and fertilizer. And already we're trying to use quantum computers to unlock the secret of how to make fertilizer from nitrogen. Also, take a look at energy. Fusion power could one day give us unlimited energy almost for free. We're talking about an energy source where the basic fuel is seawater. Fusion plants burn seawater, the hydrogen of seawater, to create fabulous amounts of energy without nuclear waste, without the threat of a meltdown. And quantum computers may be essential to stabilize the vacuum and hydrogen so that they don't cause an accident or they don't fall apart. So in other words, quantum computers can affect the economy in basic ways, not to mention medicine.
So we can see in this next clip, I mean, in the clip that you just watched, the sort of turmoil that is going on in this world that Michio inhabits regarding how science has worked for us in the past and how any of the changes brought about by these new advancements in technology not only could jeopardize um, certain fundamental understandings we have of just paying your electric bill. Um, it's more to do with the fact that those are huge industries. That this is something that is fundamental to the economy. And in the next clip, you will see more of how perturbing this is for them. And he goes on to describe like this is like such a big deal. You should really be worried about this because you know this has got to do with everything. And it's like, okay, but I thought you were the scientist. I thought that this is just the way that you guys do things, like constantly changing, constantly improving. But that's not the case. Science isn't always improving. And even if it is, it happens on a steady dissemination base. There is a very clear hierarchy to the information, and there's a very clear dissemination as to how that comes down eventually to us. And most of the time, it doesn't happen for free. It's not like every time they're making a discovery, they're immediately just getting online and going, "Hey guys, look at what we found today." No, they're not doing that. They're thinking about, okay, well, how will this affect schooling? How will this affect um, learners? How will we teach this? In what way can this be feasibly? And when we say feasibly, I mean fiscally, by money. How can we disseminate this without losing what we've already built? And to understand this, you must understand that he is a teacher, and to learn things, we must go to school. So there's already a distinct pipeline by which they can deliver the information. Now we must ask ourselves, okay, there's a way to deliver the information. So how is the information delivered? Textbooks don't change that often, despite the improvements of science. They simply don't. Because guess what? It's expensive. And it costs the school money to get new textbooks. What's more is that they have to then run through the new changes with all the educators so that they're up to speed, so that when they teach you the curriculum, they're not falling behind as to what new improvements have happened, or rather, what new improvements we're allowed to see happen by virtue of these scientists and whatever. And the same thing applies to many industries. I mean, the geology, like most things are not. There are so few industries where the economic benefits of releasing new information is not taken into consideration. And but you can see him talk about this, like especially with these, like let's see how they give names to. I mean, he's going to mention something called Moore's law. Now, I want you to think about this, right? Are these scientists or are they lawgivers? Are they priests? I mean, where else have you heard people talking in such absolutes? To my knowledge, it's only within the religious establishments we have, where someone comes out like, actually, this is the way it is, here's the law. And then he goes on to say, well, that law is falling apart. Hold on a second. How did that happen? Why did that happen? He explains it, but it's not an adequate explanation. And more importantly, it's not an adequate motivation. I mean, we're all told that scientists are constantly working on new things. That's what they get paid for. This is why they live in really nice houses, drive really nice cars, because they're getting paid to be scientists, to test new theories. But there is very little value in testing a theory that you cannot profit from. Why would you do that? As I said just now, there's no real reason for you to go out on a limb and jeopardize your career, especially if you're part of a faculty or hope to be part of one. It's best for you to learn the emotions of that specific faculty so that you don't trample on anyone's toes. But let's see where he takes this from here. What I want you to understand is that it is fundamentally motivated by a dissemination, not a giving, a very calculated, a very deliberate dissemination. I mean, there's a reason why most of these people, if you haven't noticed, are quite old when they're doing this. It's because their careers are done. Like any jeopardy that they could have put it into, it has now been negated by the fact that they have reached the end of their careers. So that's why they're coming out like, actually, listen to this crazy idea, and it's like, wait a second, what the fuck were you doing for all those years if you were not entertaining these crazy ideas? Like, were you just bolstering your stupid shit, or what were you doing? And this is the thing, if you read Michio Kaku's books, his ideas are very different to most scientists. And that's what should really scare you, is that they can even get this guy on board, like they even convinced him to don the uniform, wear the hat, and come and play dress up over at the whatever place he has his occupation at. If they can get someone like that to play ball, there's very little that most people can do. I mean, it's quite frankly quite remarkable that he has managed to maintain some level of personal agency in his thinking and hasn't just been completely drawn in by the dogmatism of whatever the scientists that surround him are. But then again, this comes back to the celebrity thing. He kind of is one. So are many of them. They do occupy a certain kind of a mix of, oh, this is a celebrity, but also you should take them seriously. They're not just some weird person who's just famous. They are famous because they contribute to society. And don't think this is lost on them. Don't think for one second that this is just like, oh, what? I'm taken seriously by people? Because of my title, you say? Like, what? Not because of my work? Like, they're not doing that. They are very much aware that it is the title and the specific institution where they're at that gives them the kind of weight that they need to keep these things going.
It's now big business. This is one of the hottest stocks that are available on the stock market now. In other words, it's a race. All the big players in Silicon Valley are part of this race, because if they're not, Silicon Valley could become the next Rust Belt. We have something called Moore's Law, which says that computer power doubles every 18 months. We take it for granted. Every Christmas, your computers are twice as powerful as the previous Christmas. The economy is based on that. But Moore's Law is falling apart. Moore's Law is getting slower and slower. Finally, it'll flatten out. And let me ask you a question. Would you upgrade your computer knowing that it's just as powerful as the last few generations of computers? No. This could cause a depression.
And so now we see he's talking about the law that I mentioned. And he goes on to say, well, if this is happening, why would you even buy a new computer? And that's therein he's giving you a clue as to just how much this changes things for them. For most people, I mean, it's about as it will have as much effect on you as learning that they downgraded Pluto. Like okay, so what? It's like okay, these three penguins that we all thought were I don't know if I forget where that reference is from, but these three penguins that we thought were king penguins, actually, that's a prince penguin, and the other one is a queen penguin. No, only the fucking people who are biologists or whatever, like they give a shit about that. So it really shouldn't matter to a normal person. In fact, the only thing that'll do is just make people kind of go like, "Oh, that's weird. Why is that suddenly happening now?" And most people don't understand it. I mean, why would they? Like, I still hear people going, "Well, how can they just take a planet away?" Like, dude, it's not fucking gone anywhere. All that showed was how easy it is to control the dissemination of information. And do you think that they just discovered that and then they just let us know? No, not at all. They had that in the works for many, many years. Um, if you are into astronomy at all, you would have known about this. I knew about it. I knew that there were other planets. Like there was a guy who came up with a theory um, so many years ago called Planet X, and he had mentioned that not only do these planets exist, but they follow paths on the orbit that do not obey the laws of physics as we know it now. And that's why most people don't hear about that. Not because it's like scary or anything, but because how on earth would they incorporate that into any textbook, into any learning material? How will they put that there? Like, here, kids, x plus y equals this, and that's why this physics thing works. But also, not all the time. Like, yeah, good luck. Good luck selling that book. Like, who's gonna buy that? That's basically a freaking religious text at that point. That's like, oh well, you're either telling me this is demonstrable and I can replicate it and therefore launch my satellites, or you're telling me that yeah, it only works to a certain degree. We don't know how far the limits of this theory are, but we're gonna keep it going. And this is from a profession that supposedly is supposed to be centered around the knocking down of ideas. Every time some guy like me comes along, he's like, "Oh, this is bullshit. That's bullshit. That's bullshit." The first thing they do is like, "Well, what do you mean? We always do this. Every time there's a new idea, we knock it down and then we test it, and we are very strict about it, and we don't mess around." It's like, okay, well, clearly not. Clearly, when it's profitable, you turn the other cheek. Clearly, when there's money to be made off of textbooks, off of having your name on those textbooks. Never underestimate just how much money there is in that stuff. There is a shit ton of money in that. And think about how wide this is. I mean, if you're a scientist at the head of one of these industries or even part of the team, you are now linked intrinsically for the next X amount of years with any research that comes out of that. Do you see any incentive? I don't. No. These are just guys who believe in science, who are just so jolly good. And we are always testing out theories. The funny thing is that the bars for acceptance, as they were, the gates of hell, they open up the gates of hell when guys like me come along. They say, no, come in, come in, come in here. Show us what you've got. Show us your theories, and then we'll evaluate them. The funny thing about this is that when it comes time to knock your theory down, then you are given the same kind of, or not the same kind, but a similar kind of authority, and you are held to the same standards as a scientist. But you are not a scientist. Do you see like how that works? They let you into hell. Come tell us what you think about this place. Look at this, look at that, look at how cool it is. Isn't it nice how we built this place up? Okay, so now show us your theories. That way they can just turn around and go, well, hey guys, this guy's not actually a scientist. We told him to roll over and jump through that hoop and then to play dead, and he didn't do any of that. And we all did that. We all know how to follow rules. So truly, now we can say with confidence that this guy's theory is utter nonsense. But hold on a second. If to be taken seriously, you must submit to their rules, to their peer reviews. And I used to think for a long time that peer reviews were a way of actually kind of moderating certain things. But it doesn't work that way, because it's kind of like trial by jury. It really depends who the fucking jury is. It really depends who the fucking peers are and how indoctrinated they are. If all of the peers that are doing the reviews are also at the same time students and or faculty, why would they go against a person who they know could either be the deciding factor or somewhat on the deciding factor for any career advancement that they may have? You will not put yourself in jeopardy by going ahead and like, oh yeah, I'm just going to be against the crowd because I love science so much. Like, no, you're not going to do that. That there are psychological experiments that show that when confronted with groupthink, mob mentality, that most people cave. Most people just, yeah, I guess if Michael from Vsauce had a video like that. Of course, it's on YouTube Premium, so don't expect any of you guys to be watching that shit because you're all so smart with your fucking ad blockers. But on Premium there are episodes where he's done that. They could basically say something like, do you believe the world was created by freaking, I don't know, stuffed animals? And if 15 people raise their hand up, you're not going to be the one, or rather there'll be very few people who will raise their hand up and go, oh yeah, actually it was my friend's bear from around the corner, not the stuffed animals in your bedroom. Why would you do that? People don't do that in those kinds of situations. So these are things we must consider when looking at these sorts of arguments.